Let me show you how to make a starting half treble crochet in the third loop. In US terms, that is starting half double third loop. I've used it here in my halo cowl. It gives you a lovely continuation at very similar round heights, and it just creates a nice condensed stitch, and I think is much better than using turning chains. So let me show you how I make them. Before I start to show you exactly how to do the stitches, we need to quickly understand the stitch anatomy of a starting half treble, because it's slightly different from a normal half treble. And one of the things I like to do is place mark that starting stitch and my final stitch, because you can see that there's an extra front and back loop that is created with a starting half treble. The same thing happens with a starting treble, so you need to be able to ignore that, and place marking the first and the last stitches means that you know that you always ignore that front and back loop which is unmarked in between the two. So now let's look at where we're actually going to place the hook to make the starting half treble third loop. You ignore the front and the back loops at the top of the stitch, and you're looking for this third loop at the back of the stitch. It's always on the wrong side, and it occurs with starting half trebles and with half trebles. You get this horizontal bar on the wrong side at the back of your work, and that's what you want to work into. So let's get the place marker out, and we're going to ignore the front and the back loops on the side and ignore the front and the back loops on the front, and place the hook from front to back in that third loop at the back of the fabric. And then you're simply making a double crochet, so yarn around hook and pull up a loop, and yarn around hook and pull through both loops. That's a double crochet UK terms, single crochet in US terms. Now what you want to do is ignore the front and back loops at the top, and you're looking for the V that is on the front of the work. Place a hook through the left leg of that V, yarn around hook and pull up a loop, so you will have two loops on your hook, and then to finish it off, yarn around hook and pull through both loops. That leaves you again with a front and a back loop at the top of your stitch, and that's the one that you're going to place mark. So if you look more closely, there's your front and your back loops. They are unmarked and they have been rotated towards the front of your fabric. And when you continue with half treble third loops in the rest of the round, it will look the same. Basically, it will create this sideways V because you're continuing to work into that third loop. Let me just put a couple in place so you can see how the starting third loop half treble stacks up against a standard half treble third loop. And as we went through during the anatomy at the beginning of this, the anatomy of the stitch, I am ignoring those first front loops and back loops, and I'm going into the ones that are right at the top, not the ones that present on the side when you're doing starting treble and half treble stitches. So that gets ignored. I've marked the final stitch of the previous round, and now I've marked the first stitch of the new round. You can see lovely V's on the side of this fabric, big squishy, lovely fabric made with starting third loop half trebles and third loop half treble stitches.